In today's sewing tutorial, I'm going to combine 3 not so unique techniques to make one unique quilt for my brand new granddaughter. I'm going to be a grandma for the first time, and I can't even contain myself. I am so excited. I'm going to show you how I appliqued this quilt, free motion quilted very densely this quilt, self-bind with a minky fabric to make it super soft for my new granddaughter. And it starts right now. Hi friends, Tracy here from the Sewing Channel. Welcome back. And if you're new here, I'm gonna be a grandma. Every quilt has a story. This quilt is no different. Now I know a thing or two about blankets and babies and toddlers and kids. I've had 4 kids and each of them have had special blankies. When I started planning this quilt for my new granddaughter, I had a lot of ideas swirling around in my head. I wanted a lot of dense quilting because I absolutely love the way dense quilting looks over cotton and batting. When I was raising my 4 kids, they each had special blankies. And I knew from experience that nobody wanted the stiff blanket. She's not going to use it if it's too stiff, but I love to dense quilt. That led me to the minky. All of my kids liked a nice, huggy, snuggy, nuggy blanket. I knew I had to put something like minky on the back of it. The question came up in the planning stage on how am I going to connect the back to the quilt top and the batting to bring it all together, because the minky would just flap around on the back. So that's when I thought to self-bind it and to connect it through top stitching from the front from the appliques. And that's how I came up with this idea. I know none of these techniques are new, but putting them all together, I've never seen it done before. And if you have, or if you've done a quilt like this, go ahead and leave me a comment down below. If you stay till the very end of this video, I will share with you a special note that I free motion quilted on this quilt for my new granddaughter. Enough talking. I'm going to be a grandma. Let's get busy. I chose to use the Heat Bond Light today on this quilt because you can stitch right through it and it does not gum up your needle. Once you find the shape that you want, you can go ahead and make different sizes like I did on the computer simply by scaling them up and down and then printing them. Lay your pattern piece underneath the heat bond so you can see it clearly. Then go ahead and trace it out. I needed 2 pieces from the 1 piece that I had because I wanted 2 contrasting fabrics for the head and then the bow. Next, you're going to just rough cut out those pieces that you just traced on the heat bond. And then you're going to lay them with the bumpy side down on the wrong side of your fabric. Iron it down just like the directions say to do on the package. And I'm going to do that to both of my pieces, but first I'm going to show you what that bumpy side looks like. See, it's kind of shiny. It's got glue or something on it. In the next step, when we go to cut this out, cut it as neatly as you possibly can because this is the end result. This is what people will see on the outside. One of the reasons why I chose the Heat Bond Light was because it was thinner and more pliable. The regular Heat Bond for the applique was much thicker and stiffer and was not good for a baby blanket in my opinion. Once your piece is cut out, then you're going to separate it from its backing, which reveals this nice, smooth, shiny side. That's a side that's going to get ironed down temporarily. Now the other stuff was a permanent iron on, the stiffer stuff. So this is just a sample that I put together just to show you how it all comes together. Cute, right? Next I took my quilt top and I folded it once, then I folded it again. To find the middle, I creased it real good with a hot iron. Then I opened it back up. This will be easy for me to see where the placement of my mini heads go. Next, I took all the pieces that I had and I laid them out on my quilt top and I just placed them where I thought I would like them. Take your time and find just the right spot for all of your pieces. But don't get too hung up on this part. Here's where I ended up placing all mine. I went with a diagonal from the top to the bottom. Now, in hindsight, I should have taken off all the backings before I did this part, but now I know for next time. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and place my ironing board underneath the middle piece. I'm going to start there and then work my way out. And unfortunately, I have to unpeel every one of them each time right before I press it. But that's okay. Let's just say I learned for you guys, so that way now you know too. Next, just follow the directions and press every piece onto your quilt top. This is what mine looked like with all the mini heads pressed down. Now the next step, we are going to baste our quilt top and our batting together. Here's a screenshot of the batting that I used here coming up. It is the Soft and Bright by Warm and Natural, and it worked really well in this quilt. Now this quilt is going to be a lot different from most quilts. We're just basting the quilt top and the batting together at this point. And if by chance you don't know how to baste your quilt on a pool noodle, I do have a video on that. And I will link the how to baste your quilt with pool noodles at the end of this video, so you can check that out. It really is the easiest way to baste a quilt. Okay, so now we are on to the sewing machine. Now remember, we just have our quilt top and our batting together at this point. Now what I'm going to do is just outline all of my pieces so that they pop and stand out in the end. And during that point, I'm going to go ahead and echo around the pieces and do some swirling within and between all of those pieces before I go out to the outside. Now, since this is not a traditional quilt, in my planning stages, I had to figure out how I was going to actually connect the minky to the dense quilting that I'm doing on this quilt. So I decided to go ahead and connect the batting and the topper together like you see that I did. And then when all the quilting is done over the entire quilt, then I'm going to add the minky on and I'm going to top stitch around each of those appliques, because remember, they're only temporary, they're not permanent. And that's perfect for what I'm going to do because I needed a way to connect all 3 layers together. Here's a bit of footage for you to enjoy while I free motion quilt some of my quilt for my granddaughter. Free motion quilting is a ton of work. There is no doubt about it, but this quilt is so beautiful and so worth it for my granddaughter. I can't wait to see it all done. Okay, the very next step we're going to do is spray baste the quilt top to the minky so that it stays down really good in the center area, where I'm next going to top stitch around all of those mini heads to get both the backing and the densely quilt top connected together. Here's a shot of my setup right before I started connecting all the mini heads to the back of the quilt. I started in the center and then worked my way out, doing each mini head separately, one by one. In my testing phase, I tested a lot of different ways how I was going to do this, and the best way that I found was with a walking foot and a small zigzag stitch. I found that it gave the best, most consistent stitch out of all the methods that I did try. Here's a quick screenshot of my plan coming all together. This part right here I very much disliked, but just take your time and go slow and you'll be fine. And the end result, take a look at the back. Oh my word, it just looks so darling to me. In this next step, I just pushed the minky aside and I squared up and cut off any excess of the quilt top and the batting, making it nice and even all around. Next, I wanted 2-inch borders all around with the minky, so I left 2 inches off to the side and I cut around the entire quilt. Because of all the quilting that we did do, we saved this part until the end because you never know where it might pull one way or another. To miter the corner, what you do is line your 45-degree angle along the minky side. Butt the other edge of your ruler right up toward that white quilted part. That's the line right there that you're going to cut. Next, you're going to take that corner that you just cut and you're going to line right sides together just like you see me do here in the video. And then you're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance right along that edge that you've placed together. After you've sewn all 4 corners, then you're going to take that white quilted part, the top, and you're going to put each corner inside of the minky corners. Then you're going to put a lot of clips all around the entire minky so that it does not shift during sewing. Then I take it over to my sewing machine and with my walking foot, I'm going to top stitch with a zigzag all around the entire quilt. And I'm also going to go up at an angle in those corners as well. Oh my word, I absolutely adore this Minnie Mouse quilt. It turned out exactly how I envisioned it. Here, I'll let you take a closer look at my quilt backing. You can see all the mini heads right there, how cute they look. They're all just like floating on the back. It's just so cute. Here's a closer look at the front coming up. I just love how those colors just pop right off of that white. Oh my goodness. As a side note, I put enough hidden Mickeys in this quilt that she will be busy for quite a long time. Don't forget, coming up here in a second, I'm going to show you my special note that I free motion quilted to my granddaughter. She surely will be able to use this quilt up until her toddler and young childhood years. Exactly the plan. As promised, my special note. Until next time on the Sewing Channel, take care.